Alan Watts on Tantra, the in-breath and out-breath, the motion in and the motion out, to give and receive, the yin and the yang. This is the duality with the flow in the middle. It's the space between doing and not doing, being and not being. It's the space between chaos and order. Let's dive in. A little bit Alan Watts.
So involved in this, they're the in movement and the out movement. On the one hand, the getting involved in the world. On the other hand, escaping. The quest for liberation, the quest for deliverance from thinking that you are just you, and realizing after all who you are. So these two movements, the movement of getting as involved as you can in the world, on the one hand, and the movement of getting as disinvolved as you can, constitute the systole and diastole of Indian spirituality. By and large, one might say that the emphasis with which the West has been made most familiar is the escape, the quest for nirvana, release, moksha, liberation, considered as getting into a state of consciousness, a samadhi, another dimension of consciousness in which you are absolutely taken out of your ordinary sense of being locked up in the body or being a particular individual, and transcending all that. That's the thing which has been largely emphasized. And in order to implement that, the methods, dharma, it means in Sanskrit method rather than doctrine or law, the dharma of Buddhism, the dharma of Hinduism, the method, has very largely therefore involved the practice of detachment, of learning to discipline your appetites so that you need to eat as little as possible, to sleep as little as possible, to think as little as possible in the sense of discursive, distracted thinking, and to be very, very cool, you see, so that you gradually develop complete disenchantment with the world. Because the idea of Maya really means that we are all enchanted, we are all entranced, we are all spellbound under the influence of a certain kind of thinking which makes us just like hypnotized chickens with their noses to a white chalk line, and they can't get off it. So in the same way, that white chalk line corresponds to the ego. Each one of us thinks, I am I. We've been told so. We've been educated that way from childhood. And so we think, I am I. Ahankara, ahang. But that I, ahang, in Hindu thought, is really not this I that we think we are, but the I which is the works, everything. Or they say, they call one of the great symbols of the Supreme Self is the swan, and then, or a gander, big white water bird. And in Sanskrit, swan is Hamsa, because when you say Hamsa, 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 Hang, Sahang means I am that. Sahang, Sa, that, Sat, it's an illusion of the word Sat, that, reality, Sa, Ahang, I am. So that's why they term it, the swan is the symbol. And Sa, wait a minute, the other way around. Hum is when you breathe out. Sa, you suck in. Hum. So this is eternally the word uttered by the Supreme Being, that he breathes himself out and he becomes all this. And then he sucks back. So, aham, I am. So everybody says, I am. Everybody says, my name is, what is your name? I. So that's, he breathes out. Then sucks it all back. And so the rhythm to transcend the finite and the everyday is the sa. The rhythm to get involved in it is hana. Now the very sophisticated people understand that these two rhythms are not really opposed to each other. They are a tacit conspiracy. All opposites are a tacit conspiracy. There are two worlds, you see, the esoteric and the exoteric, the implicit and the explicit. There are certain things that we all agree about openly. There are certain things we never state explicitly, but we wink about. And we understand by undercover gestures. We all know we are naked under the skin, but we don't publish that. We wear clothes. It's all nakedness is esoteric. Clothes are exoteric. And so clothes correspond to the mask that the Brahman is wearing. We all come on in a row as a certain kind of personality. And we don't even admit to ourselves that this isn't real. It's a very deep wink. I love the German word Hintergedanke, a thought very far in the back of the mind. And so Hintergedanke is the secret knowledge that everybody really is it. But nobody could possibly admit it, because to come out in front and say, well, after all, I'm God, would be very bad form indeed. It would be breaking the rules altogether. In our culture, this is quite inadmissible. Although in Hindu culture, there are domains, areas where that is admissible. And it doesn't constitute a claim to any unique powers for one's ego, because they all know very well that everybody else is God too. Now then, if you realize simultaneously that the way out of the mess is also the way in. The way up is the way down.
Now we're getting into it. Here we go.
The way to the end is the way to the beginning. Then you get into the inner side of both Hinduism and Mahayana, or Northern Buddhism. And so you get Tantra. Tantra, the secret doctrine, esoteric. If you say, for example, that nirvana, the ideal of the Buddhist life, is escape from suffering, deliverance from pain and anxiety and frustration. The dialectic of Buddhism would point out that seeking to escape from pain is precisely the same thing as pain. And that to seek nirvana, a way out, a way of escape from life, is only to become more and more involved in the problem. See, Buddhism says nirvana is giving up desire, and therefore you must discipline yourself, control your mind, calm your passions to be desireless. But then the cagey disciple comes back to the teacher and says, but I am desiring to give up desire. What do I do about that? And the teacher winks, because he knows that that disciple is cooking. He's on the track, whereas the one who still thinks that by enough discipline he can eradicate desire never got the point. But the one who says, but teacher, in trying to get rid of desire, I am desiring to get rid of desire. And so the teacher says, now you also have to get rid of the desire to get rid of desire. You know, like a psychologist might say to you, you all ought to accept life. And above all, you ought to accept yourselves. Accept the fact that you are human, that you have appetites and limitations and a bad temper and all this thing. Accept yourself. But then the difficult point comes when I suddenly find that the real problem of self-acceptance is to accept the fact that there are certain things I don't accept. I never will accept, you see? But that's just exactly what the psychologist wanted you to find out. That the idea of accepting yourself is nothing but a gimmick. It's a way of awakening you to the realization that there is no difference between I and me, the one who accepts and the one who's supposed to be accepted. And so in due course,
welcome to Wisconsin.
There's no difference between the subject and the object, the knower and the known, the I and the thou, in the same way. So then, the whole genesis of Mahayana Buddhism was all around the principle that the discovery of who or what you really are is precisely the same thing as coming to when and where you are. That is to say, to be completely and 100% pure and nothing. That's why recollectedness plays such an important part in Buddhism, as it does, for example, in the teachings of all sorts of people. I mean, a lot of you have probably read the writings of Uspensky and Gurdjieff. By asceticism, or by getting drunk, or by any sort of involvement that will let you out. The other way is to see how involved you can get. And so tantric teaching is based on what they call the 5 M's. 5 words in Sanskrit, beginning with M, and meaning the 5 prohibited things from the point of view of all those disciplines seeking deliverance. Meat, sex, murder, the things that are just you mustn't do. And Tantra means going the other way. It's often called the left-hand path. The right-hand path is the way the good guys go. That leads you around that way. Left-hand path is the way the bad guys go. It leads you to the same place the other way. Getting away with murder. A fool who persists in his folly will become wise. When Brahma was asked once, who will attain to union with you first, he who loves you or he who hates you? He replied, he who hates me, because he will think of me more often. And so, Tantra has tended to mean an attitude of complete involvement with the extreme situations of life. Now, what I've said thus far is a caricature. I have deliberately emphasized the naughty, daring aspect of Tantra, but for dramatic reasons. Because I want you to feel the sense of the idea that a really great sinner is a kind of saint. You see, to be an absolute, to have a vocation to be a devoted criminal is a tremendous undertaking. It's far more difficult.
That's crazy. Flip that lens on addiction. Or like your bullshit. The shit that you cringe at in your own life. Hell yeah. I've always found God at the extremes.
Difficult than earning your living by an honest job. There is nothing easy about being a great criminal. It's not a lazy man's way of getting rich. You have to work at it with absolute devotion, as you have to escape the police and fool everybody and put on this tremendous, accomplished act. And so in the same way, to be a debauchee, supposing you have a harem of girls, imagine the work involved in that, keeping them all pleased. And you may say, well, it's very nice to have a different girl every night, it makes a lot of variety, but every one involves a responsibility, a devotion, a work. And so, especially if they're all illicit and they mustn't know about each other, then you have all these games to keep going and shifting and moving it this way and that, and your work is really cut out. But you have to be, therefore, to succeed, you have to be devoted to it in a peculiar way. Same way if you tell lies. There's no point telling lies half-heartedly. If you're going to tell lies at all, you have to tell them with complete devotion and stick to your story. Don't waver an instant. But that begins to make things complicated, because as people check up on you, you have to make lies to cover up lies. And you get involved in a very, very tricky game. But that involvement in the game of telling lies is exactly the same game as the involvement of the Brahma in telling the big lie, which is that I'm not me. See, that's the original lie, the creative lie out of which the whole universe arises. So the people who say you shall not lie are saying the truth must eventually out, and it will come out sooner or later, so get with it. But that's the lazy way. All people seeking liberation out from the lie, let's have the truth, are the ones who can't stand the tension of being involved in the lying game. See? Now, I could be the very devil talking like this, but that's
so crazy. Go watch this video called Addiction, or the Master Blueprints to Overcoming Addiction by Reality Files. It is literally a straight reflection of everything Alan Watts just spoke there, in a more direct sense. But yeah, wow, that shit is really profound.
Are the ones who can't stand the tension of being involved in the lying game.
The ones who can't stand the tension of being involved in the lying game. In other words, those innocent, like naive, like immature souls, I guess. Just think back to, like high school. The kids who didn't party, they didn't do nothing bad, and they listened well. And I don't know, just we're in cliques and stuff. Is this yeah, there's no ownership of life. There's no ownership in expressing free will and being immoral so that you can learn to be moral, right? God doesn't expect you to be perfect off the bat in a world set to fuck you up. He knows. Compassionate understanding, my friends. Your path is perfect. It's perfect. All the shit is there for a reason. Go watch another video. These two videos will really outline this. And it's Why We Suffer, The Colburn Bible by Reality Files, and Addiction Master Blueprints by Reality Files, and Tricking the Trickster. Let's go.
See? Now, I could be the very devil talking like this. But that's in a way, the spirit of Tantra. Tantra is the way down and out. As exemplified, for example, in the Divine Comedy of Dante, when Dante and Virgil escape from hell down the back of the devil. Remember, they climb down the great hairs on the devil's back, down, and suddenly they find they're climbing up. Because they've passed the center of the earth, that point to which all weights fall, where the devil is, the fell worm that penetrates the world, and they find themselves crawling up because they went down, and they had to get through the wings. They had to wait. The wings of the devil are constantly flapping. They had to wait for the moment when the wings were open, then they could go through, otherwise they close. You see, that's the ancient myth of what's called the active door. The thing going, go on, get through while it's open. So, the Symplegades, the Cashing Rocks, Scylla and Charybdis, the idea of the gates, get through. See? These are the pairs of opposites, these two gates. Chawing. You've got to get through while they're open. And he who hesitates is lost. Falter for 1 minute, they're there. So you have to go through as they open, without the slightest hesitation. That means you've got to be quick, in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye. And that's the whole, that emphasizes the idea, you see, that liberation consists in living in the moment. But if you hurry to get the moment, you lose it. Because that means you have a certain anxiety. You overdo it. It's said of Babe Ruth, you know, that he felt when he hit the baseball, it was so slow that he could see the stitches on the ball in detail. And absolutely at his leisure swatted it from the fastest pitcher. And that's the state of mind, that time must have a stop. It just slows it right down. But you can't do it if you're trying to be quick. Because being quick constitutes an interruption. If you read in Suzuki's book, Zen and Japan.
This is the science of flow. Wow. I had to go back to some Alan Watts for my research on my master blueprints. Putting together a lot of stuff on the science of the flow of spirit. And the science of flow is finding the balance between the poles. It's finding the Vesica Pisces. And that's the flow. That's the flow state. That's the flow of spirit, and that's where spirit's found. It's between, you know, all those things I opened up this video with. This shit, Alan Watts, man, he understood the Eastern philosophies, which is literally the philosophy of flowing downstream. How to go with the Tao, how to be now, how to be here, right? Awareness all around. About to rebound right into this. Bang.
If you're trying to be quick. Because being quick constitutes an interruption. If you...
It's kind of like holding water. You can't grasp it. It's kind of like when you see something flickering in your vision, but then you try to focus on it and it vanishes. Or when you're doing energy work and something starts moving, or you're getting into a state of consciousness that's deeper or more expanded, and you get excited. It interrupts the flow, puts you back into the ego, where you can't let go. My friends, complete engagement with the present moment. And when the door opens to like a higher state of consciousness, to, you know, transformations, don't recognize that it's open. This is tricking the trickster, my friends. Because then if you do, you'll get excited, or you'll get anxious, or you'll think about it for a split second and it's over. You lost it. It is to notice the door, right? But in the very, 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 very back of your mind, and never actually like let it be known. You know what I mean? That's just a little master key on flow and expansion. Let's continue on. Alan Watts, this shit about to get so gnarly. This is the Mystery School. Hit that subscribe button and the notification bell, all you initiates out there. Yeah.
Read in Suzuki's book, Zen and Japanese Culture, the long essay by Takuan, the man who invented pickles, Zen master, on the art of fencing, to Yajima Tamino, someone or other. He explains how the swordsman must never try to be fast. Never, never think, I've got to be quick. At the same time, never hesitate. That's what's called the middle way. That's why Mahayana Buddhism is sometimes called Madhyamika, which means
the middle way. See how we make it full circle? That's exactly how I started the dialogue. The middle way. The Vesica Pisces. The path between the poles. Balance the poles and be formless in the flows. The flowetry that you never know because it's flowing free through your mind and you don't even see, because you are the art in motion. Yeah, it's a flowetry of devotion in between the earth and the ocean and the air and the breeze as you find that peace. Yeah. Let's go deeper.
the way of the mean, the middle. And the way of the middle is to be right here and now on time. See? But you can only be there when you know you can't be anywhere else. Then you're not trying to get there, and thereby assuming you're not there, nor are you trying to get away from it. So then, as a result of this sense that there is really no difference between the everyday world on the one hand and the transcendental world on the other, there arises Tantric Buddhism. Also there's Tantric Hinduism. They have certain technical differences which I'm not going into, but basically they are at one in the point of view that the life of complete involvement in the world is completely compatible with the life of the spirit. That the householder can be also a sage or Buddha. For example, the great Vimalakirti Sutra concerns a layman, Vimalakirti, who has a superior spiritual attainment to all the Buddha's disciples who were monks. And there's a wonderful one-upmanship meeting where all the Buddha's disciples gather in Vimalakirti's house. And Manjusri, who is not exactly a disciple of the Buddha, but he is the Bodhisattva who personifies wisdom, proposes the question to everybody: what is reality? What is the non-dual reality? And all these disciples and bodhisattvas knock themselves out to give the right words to say it. Finally, Manjusri himself makes an effort to say what it is. And Buddha isn't satisfied. And so in the end, Vimalakirti is asked, what is it? He's a layman. And he says nothing. This is called the thunderous silence. So everybody says, well done, Vimalakirti, you really had it. You know, you won up all these people. And so he is the archetypal figure of the whole situation, which is, you have to get there, but you can't get there by doing something. Also, you can't get there by not doing anything, because if you do nothing, that's really doing something. Now, beyond doing something and doing nothing, what is there? You see? So then, that's simply saying the everyday life is it. When one of the Zen masters, Nansen, was asked, what is the Tao, what is the way? So he says, your ordinary thought is the way. And when asked, well, how do you get into accord with it? The teacher replies, if you try to accord with it, you'll get away from it.
Sorry about the beeping. I just want to expand on that thought for a second. It's in between not doing anything at all and doing something. And in my mind, that means doing something while not doing anything at all. While you are in complete awareness, right? You are completely in yourself. You are completely embodied, right? Awareness on one side and identification with the true self, like your being is behind it all, the awareness. Yet you are flowing through your faculties, the faculties being the mind, the heart, and the body. You are flowing through with all of you as you are doing. You are doing while not doing. You are the art of non-action. You see the middle way? I wish I had a Vesica Pisces diagram that we could just go through, and I have a whole bunch of notes on that. But maybe I'll dig those out later in this video.
So, as in the Western tradition, so in the Eastern tradition, there is always a problem about sex. Because the sexual relationship for both traditions, both cultures, represents the maximum of our involvement in the physical world. And so, as I pointed out to you this morning, Christianity is preeminently the religion about sex, because sex is what it leaves out. And leaving out emphasizes the thing much more than including it. Where else do you see statues with fig leaves growing out of their pubic hair? It just stops you cold. You say, you gods, what's going on here? What a problem has he got that he can't show the sexual organ? I mean, that screams it at you. This unnatural deformity of the fig leaf, you see. That shows these people are really obsessed with it. So all over the world, this is the thing. Now, it is for that reason then that Tantra rather deals with the problem of sex in a preeminent way. And you will find wherever Tantric Buddhism or Tantric Hinduism flourishes, erotic statues and paintings of sexual yoga. And this is simultaneously literal, to be understood literally, and to be understood symbolically. Symbolically, it means the absorption of the divine principle in the world of multiplicity, in Maya. Generally speaking, the male partner is thought of as the divine principle, and his Shakti, or female counterpart, is thought of as the Maya, the world illusion. But at the same time, this is also to be understood literally. Namely, that there is a form of yoga which uses sexual love as its method. Now, some of you have read my book, Nature, Man and Woman. How many of you have? Well, I won't repeat myself too much then. because in the end of this book there is a study of what this kind of yoga is. But I found out more about it since I wrote it. All methods of yoga, meditation, have as their object the deliverance of the mind from the tyranny of exclusive attention, where we see this but not that, figure but not ground. In other words, the object of meditation is to expand consciousness. And this involves being able to let things go and let things happen. But as you all know, when you try to let things happen, you're still interfering. Now, the two things then upon which yoga would concentrate are, first of all, breathing, and secondly, you could say perception, breathing, and sexual functioning.
Sounds like energy work. Let's get a little esoteric. Take it to the next level real quick. Y'all see this? Buddha. This symbol right here is the perception in which you are aspiring to. This is the Buddha sitting in the sun state from the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. This is the Buddha having balanced the poles of the Kabbalah tree of life, standing erect as a Tesla coil in divine illumination, right? Because he made the outside like the inside, and the inside like the outside. And he saw through the eyes of the one inside, right? And the one outside. The male and the female, if you want to put it that way. Going back to Tantra. But right here, this is the perception in which you are trying to perceive, right? You are becoming more and more and more aware of your body, and then the subtle energy fields, right? And then all the functions and processes that are going on in this interwoven breath, the breath between, right, the subtle body and the physical body. And between there, the mind, the emotions, and all the feelings and thoughts sit. That makes sense. So, yeah. And so there's perception, there's breath, and then there's love. Perception, breath, and love. You are calling in the divine love of the universe. The 7 Lords of Light from the Emerald Tablets, right? You're opening your soul to be blended with the great essence, to become one with the Father in you, and you in the Father. Implosion, a son is born, a son of God, because you opened up to God, and you received him, you surrendered to him, you submitted, but at the same time you raised Shakti, right? Because you sat in the heart of the Merkaba, and you basically united the yin and the yang principle. You united doing and not doing, surrendering and using willpower. Really crazy. This is the Dantian and the Tian, right? The yin and the yang centers. Gets crazy. The third eye is the symbol of divine unification. The third eye is the symbol, right, of balancing the yin and the yang and seeing through both lenses, therefore having piercing perception, a perception that sees through things and receives from them. See how all this twines together? That's going super deep, but you're listening to the mystery school, and we lay it down. Let's wrap this thing up.
When you breathe, you have to learn how to let breathing happen and not force it. When you see or hear or touch, you have to learn how to let sense experience happen and not force it. And in the same way with the sexual relationship, how to let it happen and not force it. They say the yogi doesn't breathe. He gets to the point where his breath is completely still. This is only a metaphor. Don't take this literally. Just in the same way when he talks about yogis contemplate their navels. They don't sit around looking at their belly buttons in the literal sense. To contemplate your navel means to have your mind centered on the center, the navel of the world. Where is the navel of the world? Right now is the navel of the world. Here is the navel of the world. Because all round, everything distant from you is the same distance away. And there's much past as there is future, you see? Because you're in the middle. So to be here is to be at the navel. So to contemplate your navel means to get with it.
Yo, straight up though, stand in the mirror with your right fist in front of your navel or just below it and breathe right from there. Breathe through, like just above your pelvic bone and your hips, just above there between your navel and that. Just stand there with your fist over that and breathe through it as if that was the very center of you. Crazy shit goes down. Breathwork master keys. Breathe through your balls.
Same way the yogis are supposed to concentrate on the sun. Some yogis do indeed.
The sun is a symbol that marks the end of that journey. Thoth, the Emerald Tablets. The sun is the greatest symbol, my friends. The symbol of the sun. The symbol of the sun. Which is you, in the fully activated state, the sun state.
Practice looking at the sun. And the only reason for that is this, that if you look closely at the sun, it makes you aware of your sense of sight, so as to turn sight back on itself. It's an unusual overstimulation of...
Looking at the sun goes way deeper than that. Looking at the sun is like looking into your own third eye, literally. Really think about that. Looking into the sun is like looking into your own third eye. And anytime you flinch when looking at the sun, it is because there's like specks of darkness, right? That are like basically like squirming and like creating all this inflammation as they try to get out. And that's why we get tight. But when we can let that all go and look at the sun and be the sun and let that light stream through you, right? And look into your own third eye and see through the portal of both. It's really, like, that's like, yeah, that's just like how I could summarize sun gazing at the right times or the angels. Damn, we just take things 0 to 100 over here on Immortal Truth. Hit that like button. You know it's good.
one of the sense organs. That overstimulation of a sense organ will turn the sense back on itself. Suppose now also you put your fingers in your ears, and so that you get humming noises, or you press on your eyeballs. It's the same thing. Or you take some drug, you see, which makes perception, by altering perception, makes it aware of itself. So you turn back on yourself. That's the same thing as to look at the navel. To be conscious of being conscious, aware of being aware. Ordinarily one isn't, you see. Ordinarily one is aware of everything else. And so through being aware of everything else, you get misled, to forget who you are, to forget that what I am is not really different from what I see. You, if I don't know you, I don't know me. If there are no others, there's no myself. So as a great rabbi, a Hasidic rabbi once said, if I am I because you are you, and you are you because I am I, then I am not I, and you are not you. There's the conspiracy, you see, which is all hushed up.
Fucking love Alan Watts. This guy's like the greatest storyteller ever.
That I am not you, and you are not I. But since we can't exist without each other, and we can't have knowledge of I unless I have knowledge of you, that means we go together in the same way as the back and the front. There's another way of saying the back and the front are two aspects of the same thing. So then, to let something happen introduces you to a new feeling whereby you can transcend the difference between the voluntary and the involuntary. Ordinarily, you see, we say what I do is restricted to those actions which are under my voluntary control. I am and I do what I can do voluntarily. I can raise my hand, but I cannot voluntarily decide to have hiccups now. I can't voluntarily decide right now to have a bowel movement, to go to sleep, to have a sexual excitement, or whatever. All those things are defined then as being not under my control, and in that way not myself. But the tantric practices are designed for one to understand that you are also what is involuntary. Now, breathing is a special case in point because it's very easy to experience breathing in either way, either as something that you do or as something that happens to you. You can feel, I am breathing, I am doing it. But you can also equally well feel, it is happening to me. Now, which is it really? It is thus that through concentration on breathing, one is delivered from the dualism of the voluntary and the involuntary. So in exactly the same way, the tantric sexual practice is allowing it to happen without forcing sexual relationship in any way. And this means, therefore, that it tends to be...
Yeah, if anybody's watching this still this far in, get your mind around the idea that Tantra is not just like sexual practices. Tantra is perhaps the highest degree of the mystery school teachings that is given to the close perfected initiate. The high priestesses and the high priests, the master magicians and sages of the ages, right? With the high priest covens, like straight up 20,000 years ago in ancient Egypt and shit. Like, this is the teachings that were given to them. But is given to the initiates that can breathe with the ether and like can like grasp their mind around their emotions, like move it, like, I don't know, it's like a piercing perception. They have Gnosis. There we go. They got Gnosis, right? Yeah. And Tantra is like all of it. Tantra means the weave. Tantra means the weave of the breath through this mess. And you move the energy up with success when you can let go to the experience of sex. Y'all be blessed. But yeah. It goes really, really deep. Just know that. A lot of this new age, all these tantra teachings, like I can't find like good shit because everyone's just like they're stuck on the physical part. Tantra comes from the above. This is why it's not like Tantra starts with the knowledge of God. You understand? Tantra starts with a deep awareness of self. Tantra starts with a deep awareness of breath and the dichotomy between motion and rest. Anyway, enough said there.
A sexual type of relationship, which you could call contemplative rather than active. If you see the statues of tantric figures, by and large, the male figure is seated in the lotus posture like a Buddha, like the Buddha here. The female sits right on his lap, wraps her legs round his waist and her arms round his neck. And they touch at all points: the mouth, the breasts, the sexual organs, the eyes, looking.
Now we're getting into the goodies. Unfortunately, I gotta go. Wow, 36%, 12:21, or 12:12, or 33:36. You know it's good in the hood. This is Immortal Truth, the Mystery School. Hit that like button, share this on your Instagram, share this to a Facebook group. Do what you gotta do, to spread the love. This equal exchange universe. Hell yeah. Anyways, see you guys next time. Make sure to subscribe. Anyway, this is Immortal Truth. The truth that was, that is, and that will be. Peace, yo.